Hello, and welcome to Danctuary. Hey folks, welcome to the Danctuary podcast, episode 9. This is going to be a Diablo 2 spectacular, our first Diablo 2 focused episode. I'll be your host, Rhykker, and joining me today, we got some wonderful guests. We've got Diablo 2 streamers BTNeandertha1, Dbrunski, and MrLlama, as well as the creator, the lead dev, at least, of the Project Diablo 2 mod, SenpaiSomething. How's everyone doing tonight?
Really good, thanks.
Doing great.
It's a good day.
I'm doing awesome.
Oh yeah,
happy to be here.
Happy to have you guys.
Diablo talk.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, this is a massive week. It's a massive week in gaming. Let's put that out there right now. I think I have a pretty good idea of how most gamers, most of us at least listening here or on the panel, are going to be spending our weekend. It's one of the most highly anticipated events in gaming in the longest time. I think a lot of us are going to turn into some punks this weekend with this just absolutely. I just think it's going to be phenomenal in this cyber age that we live in. And of course, what I'm referring to is the D2 Arena Games hosted by MrLlama SC here, right? So that's going to be a big topic that we're going to talk about today. And we're also going to talk about Project Diablo 2.
What's that?
So, yeah. So, on the topic of the D2 Arena Games, who best to talk to us about it? Who best to intro this than MrLlama himself?
Hello. Welcome, everybody. The D2 Arena Games are something that a couple months ago I started thinking about wanting to do, and I've thought about this multiple times before. But it's basically just going to be this awesome Olympic-style event. We've got a variety of streamers, including a couple sexy ones right here. Rhykker, Dbrunski, and BT, all going to have their own teams, as well as a few other streamers. And so everybody's just going to come in and have members from their community run through and play through a variety of games. It's going to be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And there's the schedule on the site and everything. And, we can look through all of that, or SVR might be showing all that stuff right now. But essentially, it's just going to have a variety of events that are just going to be super fun. So we're going from casual events like chicken race or fastest to die to hardcore like 2v2 high level dueling PvP, and a mix and match of everything in between. I really wanted to make sure that this was going to be accessible to Diablo 3 players, to Diablo 2 players, to the casual player, to the hardcore. I really just wanted to make sure that a variety of people could get in, participate, and ultimately win some awesome prizes. We've gone out and secured over $10,000 in prizes to give away. Bunch of different gaming setups those giveaways are already up there on the site. Bunch of headsets to be given away, laptop. I mean, we just secured a bunch of stuff. And so, it's just cool because the community gives us so much. And so this is like a great way that we can give back and have a fun time overall. So I'm excited for it.
Absolutely. This is such a fantastic endeavor. I think it is without precedent. I can't think of this happening in the Diablo community, like from a creator hosting it, right? Like we see sort of eSports tournaments and other games, but Diablo's not an eSport kind of game. Right. So I think it's just wonderful to see this happening. I think it's a wonderful initiative. And I love that you're making it accessible to more than just like the top tier players. Because I think when these events typically happen in gaming, it's always like, oh, well, that's nice, but what chance do I possibly have? But like, tell us about this chicken race, for instance.
So the chicken race is probably the greatest event in Diablo 2 overall. There are chickens that just exist in town, and they just kind of move around a little bit. And if you go stand behind the chicken, it'll run away from you and squawk a little bit. I don't know if it actually squawks out loud, but you can hear it in your mind. So it just runs a small distance. And so we figured, hey, what better way to make this a fun idea than force you to push this slow chicken all the way through the Blood Moor, all the way to Flavi there at the end of the Blood Moor. And so it seems not too bad, but then you have to remember there's like monsters along the way, and there's a bunch of like there's bridges to cross and stuff like that. And if you go just a hair too far, the chicken runs the other way. And it just turns into this fantastically terrible game of you running around trying to just corral this chicken. And it's as hilarious as I mean you can think it is. It's amazing. And I'm sure BT's done a chicken race or two in his days as well. Maybe Dbrunski.
I
Yep.
can't say I have, but it's
What?
gonna be a lot of fun.
Oh, Dbrunski.
It
you're
gets
missing
stuck
out.
between, a rock and a monster sometimes. It's like,
Yep.
I can't get it out, dude.
Exactly. So yeah, so we've got chicken race, we've got dodgeball, dodge the fireballs that MrLlama launches at you.
Oh,
Yeah, that'll be one. I love the death runs. Just try and like get yourself killed as fast as possible. That's super fun. And then if you're competing with other people, they're going to be trying to kill the monster that's trying to kill you. So then
oh,
strategy,
the meta's
right?
evolving as we speak.
Right. The
Yep.
meta of this. I'm curious to watch it. And then tag team speed run, I think will be really fun. We've got some PD2 stuff that we're trying to get in there. PD2 Uber time trials. Dbrunski threw that out there, and I thought that was a fantastic idea. Try some Iron Man stuff in PD2 because a lot of us know the strategy for Diablo 2 dueling. But what's the strategy for Project Diablo 2 dueling?
Mm,
We're gonna find
I
some
don't-
broken stuff. Let's see.
We're gonna find some broken stuff is what's gonna happen.
gonna
Senpai's
be
gonna be
fun.
patching. You'll be patching mid duels, right? Like So.
Senpai, can you give us any predictions in that regard of what we might see happening in the Project Diablo 2 events?
Honestly, Llama's the one leading the show on that one. I'm kind of just the behind the scenes guy. I'm just gonna make sure it all keeps running while Llama keeps it going. So I'll leave
Fair.
that to Llama.
My prediction
fair.
is oh god, what's gonna be OP?
I think he's talking more regards to the events you have planned, like things you want to do in PD2. I know you talked about the.
Oh,
the
we've
Uber
got
event.
those.
Well, we
Yeah,
can talk
no.
about either. It's all
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
Okay, sorry.
that's true.
Oh,
No,
and
no.
if you're talking just what's gonna be in balance or not,
Yeah.
yeah, I got
Yeah.
a few ideas.
Yeah.
I almost guarantee there's gonna be something Paladin related. I don't know if I want to say exactly,
Agreed.
but I think probably Paladin, and then probably some Summon Druid maybe. Probably just a lot of the things that can naturally hit people without too much aiming. I think are going to be the primary ones.
I hope
Probably
folks are
most
taking notes. That's the tier list right there. Sign up right now to the event.
That's why I don't
Hot
want to say
tips
too
right
much. If we're doing this, I don't want to tell everybody. It feels like insider trading.
here.
I tried to duel against a necromancer yesterday, just very low level. It was Miss Kylie playing it, so not even a good Diablo 2 player. No,
Ouch.
Oh,
Okay.
wow,
Kylie.
firing shots at Kylie.
Her first time playing Project Diablo 2, and she just
and
crushed me with those summons. So I'm just
You were
gonna
running
throw
what
that out.
class?
I was a paladin, and I was trying to
Oh.
be melee paladin, and even with splash and whatever, those skellies just swarmed and the golem, and I got wrecked. So we'll throw that
All
out
right.
there.
Dbrunski, is there a specific event you're most excited about?
I'm gonna go with the Uber time trial just because I am co-hosting that with my buddy
Ah.
MrLlama. But I think it's gonna be a pretty interesting event because it's gonna be very heavily RNG based because it's not 100% guaranteed chance for organs to drop. It's gonna be two different teams with no character restrictions or level restrictions. So, I mean, you could have like a healing paladin and a shape-shifting druid or two summon characters teaming up. So I just think it'll be cool that way, just different dynamic teams. And then at the end of it, Llama and I are going to team up and see if the streamers can compete with the participants. So I think it should be
Uh-huh.
a fun event.
I hope so. I hope we don't get embarrassed, Dbrunski.
I hope
We're just
not.
getting wrecked over and over to Andy or Lilith. We're like, all right.
How about you, BT? What are you most looking forward to?
Honestly, I'm looking forward to the death race. That's going to be a lot of fun because you just never start off a character to go get yourself killed as fast as possible. Like, so I think it'll be interesting. And then the tag team race at the very end could be interesting. Definitely looking to see how that all pans out.
I feel like people are gonna
Awesome.
figure out the itemization, optimization for the death race pretty early.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's so fast though. Like,
I know. I'm just saying because you're gonna be naked.
yeah, naked.
Right,
I
right.
mean, I guess I don't know. Like, hey, maybe you
Just
pick
kidding,
up
drop your
some
items.
GG gear along the way and use that to. I don't know. I just love
Make
the meta
malice,
ideas.
drain life as
Right,
fast as
drain
you can.
life. I was like, is there anything we can find in the blood more that has drain life on it? I don't think so.
No.
There's not. There is unfortunately not.
So we've spoken about some of them. Do we want to, MrLlama, do you want to go through all the ones that we haven't spoken about so far, the events?
Sure. So let's see.
Yeah.
So we've got the Endariel death speed run. So this is racing all the way to Endariel and getting yourself killed by her. A little bit more challenging there for sure, as it's not actually super easy to just run straight to Endariel. Like it is, but what happens when you open up Catacombs level 2 and there's just like a pack of tainteds blocking the only door that you can go through? How do you get past that, right? So there's a lot of like blocks that can happen along the way from just like really bad monster packs or whatever it is. And so I think it'll be interesting to see if people decide I'm going to get 1 to 2 levels first. I'm going to try and get some potions and come back, whatever. Or if we have people that are just like, I'm just going straight there with no stopping, will there be ever a stop in to even get like stamina potions? I think there's honestly a lot of strategy for that can come out, and so I'm excited for Endariel death speedrun. Then we have the team death speedrun, we have the chicken race, we have the tag team speedrun, which will have 3 people competing, and they'll just be at set zones. And so basically, you run there, you have to be a certain. And then we're looking to maybe add a surprise event who can uninstall Diablo 3 the fastest.
Ooh.
So yeah, it's the race.
Oh, wonderful. And so signups are still ongoing, right? It's not, we don't have a full roster yet. So how can people sign up to these events?
So right now on that site right there, Arena.gl, and there's a very specific link that'll take you to the event. So I don't know where you have that link, but wherever that link is, you just click there and it'll bring you to the page. You click on events, whichever event you want to sign up for, and then you just go and press enter and you'll have a selection choice of what team you want to join. So, if there's 3 people who want to join BT's team, obviously you can only pick 1 for a chicken race or something. And so you might not get on if you do that, or we might like reach out to you and say, hey, do you want to pick a different team or whatever it is? You can also just pick random team. You can look for someone who doesn't have a person on their team yet. And I really encourage people to use this as a time to play multiple events, play for multiple teams, like sign up for a lot of different things. And just go have some fun, right? So, like, you might play for my team for one of the events, play for BT's team for another, play for Dbrunski's team for another event, or you could play for Dbrunski's team in 3 events, whatever it is. But like, really go explore the other streamers as well here, because I really want people to look and see, how many awesome people are in the community and how many great streamers there are. And so maybe going and like competing on their team could be a lot of fun. And you can go like check out that community and be like, yo, whoa, 9ball's awesome or whatever, right?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, folks, Rhyker's Raiders is looking for some good troops. Just come on,
All right.
please
All
join my
right.
team.
Go to the Llama team first and then go to Rhyker's Raiders after that, right?
I'll be the spillover team. I'm okay with that. And for people who want to just watch, that would be on your Twitch channel, or where can they find to or will there be opportunity to watch live the events?
Yeah, so these events will all be live. I'll be hosting Friday, Saturday, Sunday from I think 12 to 6 Central. You can check the calendar. It should be localized to your time zone, so you'll be able to see when it is. And I'll be co-hosting with BT. I'll be co-hosting with Anna. I'll be co-hosting with Dbrunski. And one more person, maybe? I mean, look, try and see if does it say who's the co-host for each of
Cooley?
them? Who?
Surprise
Cooley?
co-host.
I'm pretty sure it's Cooley.
Oh yeah, Cooley, and I'll be co-hosting with Cooley. Thank you. So there'll be so I'll be co-hosting with each of those people at different slots and for different events along the time. So it's gonna be cool. We're gonna have so much fun with it. I'm really excited, and I think this is a great time for people to really bring the community even more together. Right? We have so many awesome streamers across Diablo 2, Diablo 3, and a lot of great like people in the community as well. I mean, I just know all the people that watch my stream, people that watch your stream, all that stuff are really awesome. And so allowing them to meet up and play together for a little bit and, you know, share some Diablo love. That's what this is all about.
It's a wonderful sentiment, absolutely. And as a reminder, there are prizes to the winning teams, but also there's giveaways happening just to random viewers. Is that right?
Yeah. So we've got they're going to have a bunch of smaller giveaways as well. The three main ones are every day we're giving away a complete gaming setup. This is a PC, a keyboard, a mouse, a headset, a monitor, maybe one more thing, right? It's like a full rig giving away Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So that's just the people that are just hanging out, watching, whatever it is. Then on top of that, anybody who wins any of the events is getting a prize. And then on top of that, there's also going to be probably giveaways that are just like, hey, for this hour right now, like if you're here watching, here's, $50 Amazon gift card or whatever it is, right? So they'll sprinkle in some more things here and there along the way. But those are the main big ones right there. And then a laptop goes to the overall winning team to be given away to that community. So a lot of things to win, a lot of ways to win.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, BT, when you first heard about this event, which presumably was while it was still under wraps, what was your reaction? What were your first thoughts?
So at first I really didn't know what the heck was going on. I was like, wait, what do you mean there's gonna be this whole event happening over a weekend and there's like huge prizes involved. Um I was like, okay. Um but after it was kind of being described to me, I was like, dude, this is gonna be so much fun. I'm like looking forward to, you know, having the teams and seeing what people are capable of coming from different communities. And yeah, it's just gonna be fun co-hosting it with Llama. I'm very excited overall for the whole event. It should be something like we've never really seen before in the community.
Make
Awesome.
Diablo an esport. And it was actually
Yeah.
really funny because I went to Blizzard has their stuff where with esports and tournaments you have to like talk with them if when prize pools get
Mm.
big and all that stuff. So I went and I asked Blizzard, I was like, hey, like, what stuff do you need? All this stuff. And they were like, oh, we don't have Diablo as in like that's not an esport. So like we don't have any rules around it for this stuff because we just didn't like expect anything like this. So I was like, all right,
Oh,
cool. That works. So we're good.
That's surprising because
Awesome.
they had the whole Diablo 3 Arena thing planned at first in the early stages. So,
Yeah.
True, yeah.
Yep.
That's
so I
true.
almost figured that they were like leading that direction, wanting Diablo to eventually become an esport. I mean, I wonder if they'll bring that back at all in Diablo 4 in the future.
That's a good question. That's a really good
You would
question.
think
Yeah.
so because they continue talking about PvP in Diablo 4. And so, you got to wonder if they're going to try and go in that esports direction with it.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot with games, like for example, ARPGs is an example. If you want to push an esport direction, you either have two directions you can go. You can do competitive ladder chases, or you can push for PvP. And you either have to really support one or the other to have good longevity for your community as a whole, because they need
Right.
that like environment of being able to support something and cheer for something.
I wonder as well if maybe the D2 Arena games can serve as a template or a proof of concept that there is interest and they might be re-incentivized to pursue it. Because Blizzard was like all in on esports, 10 years ago.
Yep.
But last few years, they've been dialing that back for budgetary reasons and all that. But yeah, who knows? Because Diablo was their one franchise that wasn't made into an esport out of all their franchises.
Yeah, even something that like I've always wanted to do with PD2. Like for 10 years, I was obsessed with Diablo 2 PvP, just like obsessed. It's basically what kept me playing the game. So even with PD2, even though we're really focused on PvE right now, in the future, I want to try to actually set up like maybe a PvP realm that we can run during the off time in the season, or like tournaments with PvP events, things like that, with like template characters, so people are on the same footing, and kind of make somewhat of a not really an esports because it's just for fun, but like still a tournament template with scores and ladders and things like that, right? Because I really like PvP a lot as a whole.
Awesome. And you've I believe, if I remember correctly, you've built into PD2 more ways than just vanilla D2 has to sort of track leaderboards and ladders. Is that right?
That's something that we're improving on constantly. There's still a lot of that information that you can access, right? So a lot, like for example, there's a lot of things even built into the private server software that most private servers run off of, where they can have clans and all kinds of things, right? It's not necessarily stuff we created, but stuff that's just built into this old software that was used for private realms on StarCraft and Warcraft 3 and other games as well. And so already built into it is the ability to create your own clans and invite friends to clans and things like that. But people just haven't really caught on to it yet because there's not really a huge reason to do it.
I mean, that was something that Diablo 2 was going to have at like they talked about, right? At the start, they were building for clans to be a thing even within Diablo 2 itself. And then it just never materialized.
Yeah, so essentially right now on PD2, you could create a clan called the Llama Clan, and you can invite people to it if you wanted to, and it would have its own like Slack, similar how you can whisper all your friends, you can whisper all the clan members, and everyone in the clan will get the same message, etc.
So why aren't we doing this? Where's the Llama
Yeah,
Clan?
for real.
Oh my gosh.
Start
Killing
forming
me,
Rikers
man.
Raiders and the Llama Clan. I don't know.
You're killing me.
When was that functionality discovered?
We figured it out when we were just setting up the software and messing with it a bunch, right? It's just something that, like I said, it's built into the private server software out of the box, so it's just not really used or anything like that.
Huh.
So I'm assuming it's something that they must have added into it, probably for StarCraft or Warcraft 3, because as far as I understand, I don't know 100%, but as far as I understand, the private server software that Diablo 2 servers are run on was actually originally created for Warcraft 3 or StarCraft, I don't know which, and then adopted to Diablo later on. So it's got a lot of functionality that's built into it. Even the quiz bot, it only has Warcraft and Dota as options for its quiz stuff. So
Nice.
there's not even a Diablo option.
So Senpai, when you first were approached by MrLlama about the D2 Arena games, what was your reaction? What were your thoughts?
I didn't realize it was about PD. Like they were going to do a PD2 event at first. So I just thought it was kind of interesting and cool. I think anything that supports the Diablo community is really awesome, especially really old boomer games that I like to play that nobody else is that interested in, like Diablo 2.
Hey man, you're talking to a room full of boomer gamers right here. So.
Yeah, well, PD2 has only proved that a lot more people like these old games than we ever realized, right? Like we thought we'd get a tenth of the player. Now we're getting close to 100,000 accounts, and we've had 12K concurrent at one point. A month into our ladder, we're still seeing 8,000 player max days, which is pretty insane. So there's obviously a lot more people that like these old games than I initially realized, and I think a lot of people.
Fantastic. And MrLlama, what made you decide to pick PD2 as one of the venues, in addition to vanilla or base D2, to host these events?
Well, I mean, I've been playing PD2 for a month now of disgusting grind. First level 99 Amazon, woo!
Ooh.
And I don't know if that's a pride point or a shame point, but
well,
whatever.
When you were in the wife beater, with the sink full of dishes on stream with the full beard, those were the lows. But when you were cleaned up, hitting 99, lifting your hands, those were the highs for sure.
That's right. Yeah, at one point it was the no shower, like 3 days, just gross and nothing taken care of whatsoever.
Yeah, that was the moment I realized. I was like, wow, Llama actually likes PD2. Yeah, that is evidence right there.
Yeah, so I guess I took that love and and I really just thought of it for the dueling aspect, and Dbrunski brought up the Ubers aspect. That like it was just like a really great new fresh style, fresh way to look at it. Because like I said, we've done dueling in vanilla D2, and I'm down to still have some vanilla D2 dueling here. But I also want to have that element of surprise and uncertainty, and I think PD2 can bring that. So once again, you don't always go with just the people who have perfected it and got the perfect builds and the perfect everything, to a little bit of chance where you go in and you go, I wonder if Inferno Swords is a good dueler. And then she just like crushes people and you're like, all right, cool. Like you just don't like know enough. And so I think that really, PD2 is a great game and brings a lot of that variability into it.
Awesome. Dbrunski, when you first were approached, what were your thoughts on the D2 Arena games?
Just I was really excited for a lot of different reasons, and probably the biggest one is the way that it kind of brings all of the different communities together, like different streamers. Like Llama's is hosting this, but the whole idea is to try and promote Diablo, cross pollination between different communities. Someone that watches a lot of Diablo 3, watching you, Rhykker, might not even know what PD2 is, or maybe seen a little bit. They get to see like Llama or BT. It just really shows that besides the fact that we're all passionate about D2, like it's just a great community as a whole. And I think that's what was the most exciting aspect of it for me, because I've done numerous Diablo 2 related streaming collabs before, and like it's cool to do them, but the fact that the entire community is just coming together and everyone's trying to lift each other up, that's what makes the Arena games like the most exciting aspect for me, and that's why it's really happy to be asked to be co-host for it.
And I'd love to get, do more of these things in the future, right? Obviously, we'll see how this event goes, but that's exactly it, right? That cross-pollination, that idea, because I really want other people, especially people that watch my stream, to see all of these other awesome streamers. And so I'd love, in the future, go get some more, because there's some streamers that can't participate in this one, timing or whatever it is. And, so hopefully this one goes well. People have fun. We can do more. We can get bigger prize pools. Like, people have shown that they're willing to invest in a Diablo 2 event. And, so hopefully we can get even more stuff in the future and just have like awesome Diablo events and just bringing the whole community up together.
Fantastic. Awesome. Now this was officially unveiled when again, MrLlama? When could you, because we've been in talks about it for a while, but when did the official, was it last week or
probably last week, something like that?
Probably last week. So
I don't remember the exact day. One day it was
I need
just
the
like,
minute, MrLlama. What minute precisely?
One day we said, yeah, let's do it. And then it was time. And then we released the information. That's the best info I can get. But yeah, it was revealed like last week, something like that. So pretty fast, turnaround to the event being this weekend. And so, I really appreciate, you talking about it here and stuff, because we really want to get people in on those events and in on the prizes and just to have fun. So go sign up, everyone.
Absolutely. BT, have you done anything to prepare your community in any way for the event?
I've given some hints here and there, like talked about the ideas of the race and various competitions and stuff like that, but no like straight up planning, not yet, but maybe throughout the rest of this week we'll talk a bit about that.
Awesome. How about you, Dbrunski?
No, not really. I'm just gonna wing it by the seat of my pants, because one of the coolest things about PD2 right now, and that's one of the reasons why I'm like been sinking so much time into it, is like Llama touched on it earlier, is that all like for original Diablo 2, all the meta is mapped out. Everybody knows exactly what to do, when to make what rumored, what item, level to what, specific point. But it's all kind of slowly being discovered in PD2. And I have only played a handful of the characters. I haven't even played them all. So there's no like major planning. I just want to go in, have as much fun as I can and just enjoy the event. So no planning for me.
All right. Senpai, was there any planning needed on your part of coordination with MrLlama, if you're at liberty to divulge any details?
I just got to make sure the servers stay up, man.
That's all I'm bringing to him. In the future, I would love to sit down with Senpai, and I'd love to create some awesome private section
Ooh.
server where we can like do some crazy things, and he gives us some characters with gear, whatever stuff, right? And we just like go have a blast and do some cool events. That's like
Yeah.
in my mind in the future.
Yeah.
For right now though, let's just keep these servers up, baby.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think that goes back to like how I said I wanted to do like eventually down the line I want to have an event server where I can do PvP events, or hardcore only ladders, or like Iron Man, or like maybe even do like a griefer event where for a week you can play on there but you can't make private games and everyone's auto hostile. And so
Oh
you
my
can join
gosh.
each other's games in PK, but it's only for a week, and like random events, right? Whatever it is, different rule sets and stuff. I'd like to do that one day. I don't know when, but I
What
want
a
to have an event
horrible,
realm.
amazing event.
Yeah, just all kinds of weird events, right? Like whatever they are.
It's funny. I feel that there's a lot of stuff that we were okay with back in the D2 days that like it feels the new generation of gamers or just like modern, like it doesn't fly in modern gaming. Like D2 was like this cutthroat. Like if you look back, it was like the Wild West cutthroat, and like we were all like gung ho for it. Like we just we didn't go complain about it. We just accepted this is the way it is, and now we do this to other people.
Yeah, it
I don't
was
know.
like
It's a different era now.
it was like, yeah, if somebody broke in your house and robbed you, you just went to the neighbor's house and robbed them. You didn't complain about it. It was like a
This
really
is the way.
weird mentality back then, but it was the beginning of the internet. And
Back in my day, we just robbed each other. Nobody complained. You just
12-year-old
robbed your
me.
neighbor and they robbed you back. And everybody got along.
You just
I'm not-
deleted them from your friends, but added someone else. It wasn't the end of the world.
I'm not gonna lie, I've gone down the rabbit hole for like an hour before on stream, people just talking about different ways that they duped people, trading or different tricks like an emerald and a Shaco or whatever, trading rattle cage. There's one of them in Loot Ghislaine when you're inside the tavern and you can like, I forget exactly how that works, but it was
Behind the bar. That's how I lost my first torch.
behind the
I lost
bar,
my
yep.
first torch that way.
it really was the
People
wild
that
west.
want to trade outside and inside the rogue encampment, then they use teleport charges to teleport in and steal your gear. All the different ways, the type /DND and then your password. I mean, just a million ways to get scammed in that game. It's fantastic. I got scammed in every possible way. Body popping. I mean, you name it. I got scammed in it. It was great. What a game.
The worst part about that is there were so many young kids back then that were like 8 to 12, and then they'd get scammed and they'd be like, well, now I have to do this because I'm behind. And then they'd turn into the people, and it's just this like toxic snowball of BattleNet that went on forever. Thank God I don't have to deal with that in PD2. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, you hit upon a great point, because for a lot of us, I mean, like I was probably about 12 when I started playing D2. So for a lot of us, this was like either one of our first online experiences, our introduction to the internet, and like at least to me, it was like, oh, this is how people behave on the internet. Like it's like teaching me this behavior. And I'm sure countless other young impressionable minds were trained into this to think it's normal and okay. And
and that's how BattleNet culture was formed.
Yeah. And 20 years later, D2 is still a game with a healthy population, a community that is big enough for MrLlama to be able to host this event. So well, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here. We're going to talk about the longevity of the community a little bit later on, but MrLlama, I know you've been having a hugely busy time these past few weeks. Did you have any idea going into it how much work, how much time it would take to put this event together?
I mean, you always know it's going to take time. It definitely, like, I wish I could even put more time on it, and just probably in the way of I wanted it to be fleshed out earlier, right? And so like it wasn't until like last week that we got it out. I would have liked to have started talking about it and promoting it like 3-4 weeks ago, because I mean it's a big event, right? We got over $10,000 in prizes, like well north of that, and so like I wish that I had been able to promote it more instead of Kevin this last week, but man, life's been crazy. And then the grind to 99 is just insane. I blame BT 1000% for that one. BT and
What?
Kano, they get the full blame because I was just gonna do a nice ladder reset, play around a little bit, have a little bit of fun, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're going to 99, and then my life is consumed for a month. So
All right. Well, I guess let's move on to our other major topic of the night, which is Project Diablo 2 itself. Evidently, this has taken the Diablo 2 community by storm, taken the Diablo community by storm, brought back so many players into Diablo 2, getting people to re-experience the joy of the game. To me, this so to explain to anyone who happens to not know, Project Diablo 2, it's a new mod for Diablo 2 that released. I think it was in September. No, it was November that it released. Right, it's been a month now, and it is. I think Llama and I share a similar sentiment that it's close. It's the closest thing we have to a Diablo 2 remaster in essence. Senpai, would you like to talk to us a little bit more, fill in the details here about Project Diablo 2?
So basically, Project Diablo 2 is just kind of like you said, not. I guess I don't want to say a remaster because I feel like that's tooting my own horn a bit. But we're trying to basically continue Diablo 2 and basically maintain the spirit and the feel and the vibe and like the general direction the game was going with its patches and the content that was being released, and basically kind of channel our inner D2 dev team and continue that without pushing it too far. And then modernizing a lot of things that have kind of just felt archaic over time, right? Like small quality life things. There's a lot of like UI type stuff, even that it just seems like it is unintuitive because the game's old, and we just want to improve that so that when you're someone that's never played D2, for example, and you want to try it because you heard the hype's good, you don't jump in and then go, well, the game's fun, but I can't handle inventory management or messing with things or talking to my friends or the clunkiness of this or the oddity of that, right? So it's a lot of like trying to polish out small things that happen because the game's 20 years old or whatever, right? And then also mixing it up because, as we talked about earlier, the game's been around so long that the meta's defined, and it's kind of a shallow pool when or a puddle, I guess you'd say, almost, in terms of what are the most relevant classes, right? There's only a handful of the really most relevant ones. So it's just kind of trying to diversify the game more and let people essentially do whatever they want from beginning to end. Because another issue that Diablo 2 has is that a lot of builds are viable, but only for certain points. So, for example, it's good for Nightmare, or it's good for Endgame, or it's good for leveling until 20. And then you kind of respec and you shift between them based on that. So, something that we're constantly trying to improve on is also the ability to play what you want from beginning to end. Something that we tried to help also with adding respec tokens dropping in Nightmare mode instead of just Hell mode. And then reworking a lot of synergies so that there's kind of a more clear character progression from level 1 to 99 if you want to play a wind druid from the beginning. Like previously in LOD, you had to respec into wind, but we kind of changed it up so that you can play wind from level 1. So there's a lot of like just small things, trying to streamline the game for the average player, but also keeping the difficulty and then just making it interesting for old school Diablo 2 players, I guess.
Now, how long ago did you have the idea to make this, and what gave you the idea? What made you decide one day, you know what, I'm gonna basically make an unofficial D2 remaster, or a Diablo 2 mod? Like, what how did that come about?
Honestly, I've been obsessed with game design my whole life, basically. Like when I was
Ah,
a kid and we had, the rainy indoor days at the portable, I would design pen and paper RPGs and create my own D&D rule
nice.
sets. And then we'd play the campaign. When the campaign was over, the fun for me was designing the rule sets. So once that was over, I'd throw the whole campaign and the rule sets away. And then I'd create a new campaign with new rule sets because the fun was the design for me, right? So
so you
then from
didn't even
there, I
play
went
them.
into, yeah, I would play them too. I'd do the
Oh,
DMing,
okay.
right? Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we'd play them, and I'd be the DMing, and I'd make little like paper icons, and I would draw the shop and like draw the swords and stuff. Like I was full blown into it back then. And then from there, I started making custom games on Warcraft 3 and StarCraft, and just creating like MMO designs on paper, nothing else, because I'm not a coder by any means. And so I've always been obsessed with game design. I have like a whole box filled with like probably anywhere from 30 to 50 games I designed. So
Wow,
yeah, PD2 is just kind of a combination of everything, I guess.
awesome. Awesome. And yeah, so how long ago was it that you decided to like actually get started on this project?
So that was probably we're what a month into reset now, and it was about 6 to 7 months before the reset. So about 8 months ago, roughly, I'd say. It was kind of when quarantine started. I decided to
Ah,
pull the trigger on this. I figured, people are bored right now. Maybe I can abuse a little of my streamer privilege to suck some people into helping me do this because no one's got anything to do. So I worked that a bit and got a few people that were long-term members of my community involved. Like everyone in the original dev team had been in my community from anywhere from 1 to 3 years, so we all kind of knew each other and stuff. And
awesome.
then we just
Awesome.
did it.
Now, Dbrunski, what is your favorite thing about Project D2?
I'm glad you asked me this because this is the only answer that I prepared for this podcast.
Ooh.
Um, Not really a single thing, but just kind of going off on a random tangent here. The reason why I think Project Diablo 2 is so successful is it because it hits like a trifecta, if that's a word, of appealing to everybody. So people that, eat, sleep, and breathe Diablo 2, they only want to play D2. PD2 covers that basis. It really does feel like Diablo 2. So if you compare it to a mod like Median Excel, I feel like that's kind of different game. It just doesn't really quite feel like D2. So PD2 appeals to the hardcore D2 audience. It adds a bunch of quality of life changes. So it brings like people that love D2, but they don't want to play on an 800 by 600 window. Like they want to play 1920 by 1080p, all that stuff. Like PD2 appeals to them, and then they also have like a single player support as well as uh like their PD2 net or whatever you want to call it. So it appeals to people that like to do single player grail or speed running or online ladder competition resets. So I mean, I just everything about it is, it just like it hits all the aspects of different player bases, and that's why I'm just so excited about this mod and why I've been crushing the amount of time that I have been into it.
Awesome. Great answer. How about you, BT?
Oh man. Um Overall, like PD2 to me feels like an expansion to like Diablo 2. It feels like it meshes really well with vanilla LOD and then just adds a whole nother aspect to the game that just it feels good. Um More content, new balance changes, the quality of life, like all that stuff. It's just honestly it's a blast and I've been playing it almost nonstop every day like since the ladder started. So and the single player aspect, I absolutely love that too because something about other mods is they don't necessarily focus on the single player aspect. And I really love single
Mm,
player. It's like there's no lag, or if I just want to hang out and just go at my own pace, like that's something else as well. So I overall it's just a blast. It's a lot of fun and I feel like it fits really well in the Diablo 2 vanilla feel. So
awesome. How about you, MrLlama?
Oh man, I mean, I could talk forever on this, but I'll try and hit the high
Oh, we got
points.
time. We got time.
Oh, okay, cool. Then I'll talk forever about it. Um, Senpai brings something to PD2 and to Diablo 2 that I feel is really necessary, and that is not just the passion and love of the game and desire to play the game, and create something cool, but the desire to keep the integrity of the game true to its form while building on top of that. And that's why I've said this is the closest thing to a remaster that we have, because the game still feels vanilla. When you go through and you're playing the game, yeah, there's some slight different skills or, there's some quality of life, whatever stuff, but it just feels like a vanilla game. There's no piece of it where I'm playing it and I feel like, man, this is some crazy mod that's doing some crazy thing, or this is unrealistic. The game wouldn't have this. Um, every change that he's added, I feel like I could totally see Blizzard coming in and being like, yeah, we would do that. Like we would
Mm,
stack things. we would, have the charm inventory or the bigger inventory. And obviously some of these are taken from, Median and Path of Diablo and some of these other mods, right? Like certain things have been kept and taken through, and those are true in those ones as well. But just the overall feel of it, the overall play of it, the difficulty, I think is one of the big things. The difficulty is really brought along in the same capacity. And so when you go and you play Vanillity 2, it's a hard game. If you want to beat the game, you don't just like breeze through it, right? You go and you get stuck and you have to grind for some items, and there's some terrible monster spawns and all of this stuff. And you never feel like you just kind of are breezing until like later on when you're really geared up. And I felt like that was really reflected in Project Diablo 2 as well, where it was a hard game, and it was hard in some new unique ways, but it still kept that same like difficulty level. I feel like I need to get some gear. I feel like I need to do some stuff to move forward, and it just had that feel to it. That's the best way I can put it. It just I can't tell that I'm playing a mod. I would totally believe Blizzard coming out and being like, "Yeah, this is a remaster of the game. It's the same stuff. We've rebalanced a few things. We've removed some things. We've added some quality of life, and we've added some, end game content a little bit." So I mean, from there, I just I give the chef's kiss over to Senpai there, because it's just he's done a fabulous job of keeping
Absolutely.
that and then building on top of it. So I'm really excited to see what else he's gonna do.
Mm.
With the
Yeah, I'd
game.
like to take all the credit, but I'm just one guy on a team of awesome people. Probably the dumbest one on the team, if I'm being honest.
Senpai and team. Sorry.
I'm just the dumb guy with the ideas. The smart people make the ideas happen.
That's
How many
that's the
people
one
are on your
thing.
team? Oh, no,
It
go ahead.
fluctuates, honestly. The core dev team that works on the actual game itself is only a handful of couple people. Currently, we're about 3 people on the actual game, and then we have some people who work on the server, the website, huge mod team. We have a Photoshop team. We have a couple people that were working on a trailer, but they're working on some other projects at the moment because they do it for a profession. And then a whole bunch of other volunteers and stuff. So it fluctuates anywhere from, I'd say, probably 5 to 15 people, depending on what needs to be done.
Nice.
Awesome.
That's
Kudos
like
to the team.
that's like one thing I'm like really excited about in Project Diablo 2 is that they're currently working on it. It's something that's in like it's in action right now. It's happening, and like every 4 months or somewhere around there's going to be a new season. So like we figure out the meta. It's not going to be like old Diablo 2 LOD where it's like we know the meta, we've known it for years. It's like every season there's going to be balance changes. There's something new to discover. It's going to be new item changes, new gear, like maybe even new skills potentially and stuff. Like it's very exciting like as a content creator because I know that there's just more to do and that I can be excited about.
Yeah, that's one
Awesome.
reason too why we chose the name Project Diablo 2 is because we kind of wanted to show that it's an ongoing project, right? It's always continuing to evolve and grow and be improved upon, right? And it was also there's another mod for Smash Bros called Project M, which I love, so it was also kind of an homage to that as well. But but yeah, we wanted to kind of get the point across that it is constantly evolving and growing and being worked upon and improved. So I like
Nice.
that you feel that.
Now, BT hit on something when he said that it feels almost like an expansion. And what came to my mind right away was the end game systems that you've implemented that don't exist in Diablo 2 itself, but that we see implemented in more modern ARPGs. Senpai, you want to talk a bit about the mapping system?
So the mapping system is obviously inspired by Path of Exile and Diablo 3 even to a degree because they have rifts, right? It's kind of, I think, a system that ARPGs were just eventually going to go down in some manner or another, where there was infinite dungeons, the ability to create your own zones that you essentially craft, right? Because crafting in ARPGs is just it's kind of a concept that's really bred throughout the entire genre as a whole, right? You're always crafting to some degree, whether it's basic crafting or more advanced crafting like Path of Exile. I'd say like Diablo 2 as a game is probably more on the basic side, and Path of Exile is more on the extreme side. And then the map crafting is kind of an in-between, I guess, because it allows you to have crafting still relevant even when you no longer feel the need to craft on your actual gear, which creates kind of a currency sink. It also makes it so that players can mix up the zones so that they're not always the same types of danger, right? So an example that would be in PD2, we have different monsters that can be added into maps or areas that they wouldn't previously be in. You could get like a tier 2 map with cows in it, or the succubus witches, or dolls even. So I would say in its current state, our map system is the most basic version, and in the future we want to improve that a lot so that we add modifiers that really make you deal with the environments differently. Like maybe we do something like area periodically cast meteors on the player every 30 seconds so that you can't stand still in the area, because every 30 seconds a meteor will be
God.
pinged to drop on you, right? So every 30 seconds you have to reposition, or whatever modifiers we decide to go down in the future, right? I want to add things that change the way the player plays and the way the player reacts to the zone and the environment and the creatures around them. So it's just about basically making it so you don't get bored of the beginning to end grind and repeat, right, in an RPG game.
Hmm. So I'm not the Diablo 2 expert that the rest of you are, but to me, like the idea of adding this mapping system, I think this was a phenomenal addition. I think it is very commonplace. It's almost mandatory now in modern RPGs to have some kind of end game content like that. MrLlama, what are your thoughts on the implementation of this system in Project D2? Do you feel it makes sense within the Diablo 2 context? Does it still feel like Diablo 2? Would you do it differently if you were the man behind the screen?
Oh, completely. It's a giant mess. No, it's great. I think it's a great starting off point, right? I completely agree with that, because eventually, right, here's Diablo 2. You play through, you get to like what, 70, and then you just do do bail runs
Bail runs,
all the way to the end. This adds a little bit more there, right? Now it's like you can get there, you can do some bail runs, then you can try some T1 maps, some T2 maps, some T3 maps, right? So you can add in some more of that content there to the end. And it can get you, into your 90s there, and that can be definitely some of the grind. Um, I think on the race to 99, we definitely felt it hit the point where it was like, well, dang, all we can do is juiced T3 maps and nothing else on this run. And, they got a little bit repetitive in that regard. So, but obviously that's a race to 99. But like, I would love to still see further expansion on this. I'd like to see something like T1 to T6 maps, and those T6 maps not even being accessible until you're like level 95 or something minimum, have like different entry levels for each of those zones, have them be really unique and different in how they play. And even then having some difference among like the T6 maps, right? So let's say right now T3 is like River of Blood. You have the River of Blood and it spawns, specific kinds of minions. I'd like to see that change up as well, because I know as a party play, it wasn't too bad having all of us in the party, just kind of like do whatever we wanted to do, because we could just dominate with our synergy. But as a solo, like my Javazon was equipped to really run T2 maps. T3 maps, there was a lot of light immunes. T1 maps had a lot of decent amount of light immunes, but T2 maps didn't, and I could dominate those. So it was like, all right, this is kind of it feels a little bit like Ancient Tunnels, Pits, blah, 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 where your character kind of just like tells you where you can go. But in mapping, I'd rather have that be a little more different. So, I think the concept is great in its basic form. It was a nice addition, but I'd love to see just further expansion on that for sure.
Yeah, and
All right.
that's something we have really planned too with Ladder 2. I think Ladder 1, obviously we had to do a lot of things involving infrastructure, like even just to house the amount of players we have. We had to do a lot of work on that end, so a lot of our time got sunk into technical side of things. But
Mm.
Ladder 2, something we're going to be really focusing on a lot is improving the map system and I've been working on tons of layouts, so I got a ton of maps ready. Start
Nice.
pumping them out when
Nice.
we get ready for ladder 2. So that's going to be a big part of ladder 2. I think the primary focus on ladder 2 is improving the map system as a whole.
I gotta say, I'm really impressed with the turnaround time that your team has had. Like, it's put 8 months from idea to implementation. I think that's really fast, and you executed it really well. It's very impressive.
Yeah, I appreciate
Uh,
that. My team put in a crazy amount of hours to get there, so I'm really proud of my team, and some of the people that are involved are like, well, not some of the people, all of the people involved are crazy talented in what they do. So we've had a lot of really great people involved that all mesh together really well. It's been a pleasure to be involved in it.
Awesome. Dbrunski, do you have any? What are your thoughts on the Endgame system? Any feedback in that regard?
Um, I think it's like I haven't had a chance to play it to the extent that MrLlama has. But I think that the maps really do feel like aesthetic wise, they really feel like D2. That's one thing that I really like compared to just for an example, Path of Diablo, the monster density was kind of insane. Not that it's a bad thing, but it just didn't really feel like D2. So I like it in the regards of the maps look like D2, but one of the things that I kind of noticed, and I went a different route than BTNeandertha1, I went with a melee focused character, and I found that I kind of struggled balance wise a little bit when I went into bigger groups just because I couldn't sit back from a safe distance and cast spells. I was kind of right in monsters' faces. So it
Hmm.
maybe kind of felt like it was a little bit off balance that way, but like Senpai listened to my feedback and made some adjustments and buffed the characters. So I think that anything that might be a little bit of a shortcoming or lacking currently is something that like the dev team is listening to and will continue to address and balance as they move forward. But I mean, they're so swamped. Like it's like a group of less than 10 people to dosed every week, right? And like you mentioned, the quick turnaround, and they're still dealing with all of that, and then they're addressing balance changes and stuff as they go. So it's not like, for the most part, I think it's like absolutely phenomenal. And any of the small things that I think are like little setbacks, they're continuing to uh, address them, rebalance them. So it's very impressive to see, to say the least.
The constant war of caster balance versus melee balance that plagues
Hmm.
ARPGs.
Yep.
Yes.
It's impossible to balance. I mean, I haven't seen a single game get it like perfect. It's always
Hmm.
just one is better than the other. That's it.
Yeah, it always ping pongs.
How about you,
Gotta keep
BT?
working on it.
The mapping stuff, or the end game. Overall, I think like it's a great addition to Diablo 2, and like after doing bail runs and magic find runs for years, it's nice to have something else to go to just have a little bit of different taste or feel in the game, and it's quite fun actually. And as the balance patches have been coming out since the launch, it's been becoming more and more like more interesting, and it's like, wow, this is actually becoming something that's really cool for the game. Definitely looking forward to seeing like what that actually looks like in the next season and the seasons to come after that. But overall, like I think it's a great addition to Diablo 2 in general. Like it can get boring a little bit to run the ancient tunnels run on your sorceress over and over again. And it's like, oh man, this thing again.
Leave me
But
alone.
maps, yeah, exactly. And but maps, like you can find every item in the game over there. You're not like restricted in any way. The good experience is good. You know, just fundamental game mechanics and stuff like that is great too. So
Yeah, we've been seeing a
Awesome.
lot of hardcore deaths the last few days on maps ever since we made them a little spicier.
Ooh.
yeah, it's
It's been
insane, man.
we've seen some deaths. People are starting to die in maps now. They weren't dying so much before.
Yeah. They were under buffed at first, so nobody ran them. Then they hit that
Yep.
spot where it was like good enough to run, but you couldn't die very often. But like you could get what you needed. And now they're like, they're spicy.
Yeah, now you
It's
gotta pay
like
attention. And
You
people
gotta
are
pay
liking it, so I'm
attention.
glad.
Yeah.
It was like 4 hours ago, not even. Like, I just had the rippiest map I ever went into. Like, I jump in there on my barbarian, right? And there's like my aura, fanaticism aura, and there's succubus
God.
witches everywhere. And I'm just getting like pummeled from every direction. So it's great to see some difficulty in there as well, but man, I had to
Yeah,
change my
succubus
pants.
maps are scary for sure.
Now,
We
a
used to have
common
this.
theme. Go ahead. Go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. I was just gonna say we used to have the succubus always spawn as a baseline creature in the tier. Originally, it was in the tier 1 map, and then people were like, "This is insane to have it in the tier 1 map." And then we moved it to the tier 3 map, and then people were like, "No, it's still too insane in the tier 3 map." And we're like, "Okay, it's only gonna be a mod that can roll on the map, and then you can roll it off the map." And then people are still like, "Oh man, succubus maps."
Succubus are brutal.
They're dangerous.
Well, so a common theme that I'm seeing here is you folks giving the sentiment that PD2 feels like D2. It doesn't stray so far as to feel like you're playing a different game. It stays true despite everything that it adds and changes. It still feels like D2. So the question I want to ask here is, do you feel that there's something that PD2 should never touch? Because if it does touch this thing, then it wouldn't feel like D2 anymore. Is there something that's just really so sacred to the D2 experience that PD2, like, if you could tell Senpai, don't touch this, would there be something? And we'll turn this at first to, uh, I'll say Llama. If you want to pass it to someone, feel free.
All right, I'll take it. The biggest thing I would say don't touch is probably power. And that's not really a great don't touch thing, but power creep is my biggest warning for it for sure. And I feel like Senpai did a great job to start with that, right? He nerfed down a lot of stuff. He's obviously introduced some power with corruptions and stuff, which is a really, fun little thing. Obviously, everybody loves valing things from PoE and whatnot. So who doesn't love corruptions? But ultimately, power is where you really have to be careful, because we've seen multiple ARPGs where once they start to ramp the power up too much, you just lose
Hmm.
that like feel, right? It changes the play style, it changes the game too much. And that's where, like you were asking about Media and XL before, Media and XL ramps that power and it just gets kind of
Hmm.
crazy. And everything, it's the monster's power, your power, everything just gets too fast, too powerful. And so I would say really keeping that in check is going to be one of the biggest ways to make sure that you don't go wrong with it.
Yeah. In the defense of Media and XL, they are trying to design a whole new Diablo
Oh yeah,
experience
I'm
for
not
the
saying it's a
baseline.
bad. I loved Media and Excel. Like I have a 135 level 135 barbarian that I like played through, and I had the best time ever playing the game. It
Yeah, they
wasn't
did some impressive
Diablo
stuff.
2, but it was a great game.
Yeah, I
So
appreciate all mods. The people do some crazy stuff with mods. It's really cool to see.
yeah, Median's done the most by far with Diablo 2 of any mod. Like
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
impressive.
they've done crazy stuff. So it's just a different game using the engine, but it's really
Mhm.
interesting.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
been around for over a decade, I think it is, right?
I think so. Yeah, I
Media
remember
XL.
playing it when I was like 12 or something. So
Yeah,
or
yeah.
15 or I don't know. I remember way back then when nobody talked about mods on like Mod DB or whatever you used to download them on.
No, yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I love the modding community. I love that mods can exist in D2. Evidently, StarCraft and Warcraft, because of the inbuilt mod tools, it's easier to make mods for those games. So there were a lot more, we call them custom maps, right? Way back in the day. But I'm glad that despite everything, D2 had people who knew what they were doing to go in and like edit hex files and stuff and build in assets. I remember like, oh God, what was the Frozen Keep? I was like learning how to like make
Oh yeah.
a drop
Yeah.
mod. They had little tutorials and stuff, and but I was really blown away by Median way back in the day, and there were a couple others. I think it was seventh something. There were like total conversion mods where it really is a different game. And I remember back then, I booted up Median, and I'm like, oh, like I'm seeing sprites and monsters and environments that are not familiar to me, and that was a turnoff for me back then. I guess because it didn't feel like D2 anymore. revisiting Median a decade later, where I'm looking to experience a completely new game, love Median. But my totally stupid answer to the difficult question that I posed is don't add dragons to the game, because then it doesn't feel like D2 anymore. They were like taking Baldur's Gate sprites and putting it into the game, and I'm like, nope, this doesn't feel Diablo anymore.
Yeah.
So for a more intelligent answer now, Dbrunski, what do you feel there's anything that should never be changed?
Yeah, I would say keeping that balance of effort invested in the game to drop rates. I think that's the one thing. Now, the more casual player could maybe argue against it, that they don't like it, but I think that's the one thing that makes Diablo 2 so exciting for me, is that, you could hunt for a specific item for like 2 weeks, and then when you finally get it, it's just that gratification.
2 weeks.
Or you could, or it could be like Llama 3 years for that. Might be a little bit extreme of an example, but I think that kind of reward versus rarity of drop rates, like that really nice balance that Diablo 2 has, to not shift it too much to the sense for like the casual player. And not that I don't think that Project Diablo 2 has done that. I think they've done a really good job of balancing like the increased monster density, doing the tier maps, and you're killing more monsters. It still feels rewarding when you get that drop. So that would be the biggest thing that I would recommend any Diablo 2 mod or Senpai to just watch that balance.
I mean, I'm on the nerf the drop rates. I feel like you already made it too generous. I'm like, let's take it back. Let's take it back to half. Give them players 3 instead of 5, or whatever. But obviously, I play way more. So once again, I think, like Dbrunski said, when you go to the more casual gamer, they're gonna be like, no, like I like it. Like give us more stuff for the time I play. But that's a good point.
Not everyone can put 12 hours a day in.
Yeah, that's what I think. It's hard to balance that. Somebody that plays in an 8-man group, 6 hours a day, might want it a little bit scaled down, whereas someone that, I can only stream like, 6 hours a week. So I think it's good where it is, but it's a difficult thing to please everybody. But I think that PD2 and Path of Diablo and other mods have done a good job of keeping that intact.
Yeah, that's why in the end we kind of went with Players 5, because we figured Players 5 will give the solo players who want to play more casually still a chance to get their loot because they're running Players 5, but then the people who also want to play in a group can have that scaling of, the P5 onward type thing, right? And our loot system actually, it scales a little bit differently, so it actually goes a little bit beyond Players 8 with the full 8-man party. It'll go from Players 5 on 1 to roughly Players 9-ish by the time you have an 8-man group, so.
Awesome. How about you, BT?
Warnings of the future. Probably just like that balance that Llama and Dbrunski were talking about. Like the thing that makes Diablo 2 feel good, at least for me, is there is somewhat some balance and some skills. Obviously, there's OP things in LOD with like Hammered In and Javazon and stuff like that. But there's some builds that are still fine. Overall, though, like if power creep gets out of control, then it would definitely hurt it for me or my interest. And also like making sure that maps, don't get too crazy either. Like I am kind of along the lines of, wow, there's a lot of loot dropping in this game. It's fine and it's fun for sure, but like the only worry that I have about that is like, say after I play 1,000 hours on a character or something, because I play a lot.
Casual.
There's a lot of a casual 1,000
in our
hours.
4-month ladders.
Sorry.
4-month ladders.
Yeah. After I play a lot of hours, it's like, okay, now what? Because I've gotten everything dropped multiple times and stuff like that. But those are just some warnings. I feel like it's great right now. I think Players 5 at the start, like as far as loot drops go, being Players 5 at the start is good. You can get the ball rolling a little bit faster. And also it doesn't get rid of the incentive of party play as well, because like party play in some other scenarios, like if you just max out the drops no matter how many players are in the game, it's like, well, now what? If I invite my friends to come play, the monsters are harder and I have to now like share gear with them. So it's a less of an incentive to play in a party. But now that it's like starting at players 5, loot, and then it goes up to players 9, like it invites more party play. And that's, another thing that PD2 does well in general.
Yeah, I want to go back to that final thing you said with party play. I mean, that is probably the greatest thing I think that PD2 really brings, at least in my opinion. There's so many things that PD2 has changed in minor ways or some big ways, whatever it is, and yet the game still feels like Diablo 2. So that in itself is amazing. But the party play was just fantastic because in D2 LOD we're just running max DPS. Everybody's just a giant DPS character, and you just murder everything, and you're fine. But here, when we were doing our mapping and stuff, it was like, hey, we need to get a curse necro in here. Hey, we need to get a salvation healing paladin in here. Hey, we need to get this and that. Like we were constantly searching for support characters to come join our team to speed us up, as opposed to purely just having DPS. And I think that was a really interesting thing that you guys were able to capture, and I hope remains viable or remains as the best strategy going forward. That DPS doesn't get so out of hand or get to a point where you can just always have more DPS, but rather there is that focus on bringing in those support characters. Because to me, that's what really made me excited to grind in 99 was getting to that team play, right? We were all really focused on engaging with each other and having everybody there because it was so important. Everybody's role is really important.
I'm really glad you felt that too, because that's actually something that I really wanted to capture going into PD2 is making support classes viable again. It's something that I really like, and it's like, for example, EverQuest, a really old throwback game. EverQuest is a very relevant support system of enchanters and other things like that, and I really like that feel of playing a support class where your purpose isn't to do damage; it's to, you know, amplify your party in different ways, whether it's physical DPS or making them faster or stronger or whatever, right? And
Yeah.
I eventually want to add more ways of supporting party members and things like that too, because I really like the idea that you can do more than just do damage in an ARPG.
Dungeons.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I absolutely love that. Like that's I know our main topic isn't Diablo 3 here, but like something in the past year or so I played a bunch of Diablo 3 and I loved the fact of that there's different roles when you're pushing the high greater rifts. There's a support character, DPS, a boss killer and stuff like that. And I feel like to some extent Project Diablo 2 actually like brings that over really well. Like we were just talking about with the support characters. Some people like to play support. Like for example, I like to play support sometimes, not just be the DPS guy. Um, it's good. You feel like you're adding to the team and you're needed, and it's a lot of fun too. So
Awesome. On a related note, do you prefer when a game dictates what role every class does, as in most MMOs, or when, as in the case of D3 and presumably D2, when support happens, it's the players that find and produce the builds and carve out these niches outside of developer intent?
Um, I would say for me personally, I think that it kind of depends on the game itself. So and it, for example, with an ARPG, and ARPGs are supposed to be very open ended and a lot about kind of creating and uh, making your identity and what you want to do. In order for an ARPG to have good replayability, you need to be able to manipulate that in ways where it completely changes the identity of your character. So you can be a paladin A, a paladin B, or a paladin B to F, right? And all of them feel completely different and make you want to replay the game. In the case of something like an MMO, for example, where you might put 400 hours into your character and you want classes to really have a very strong identity, I think it's okay for them to have a couple archetypes they can fill into. Like maybe they can do a tank, a healer, and a DPS, or they can do a tank and a DPS, right? So I think for me personally, I think MMOs should be a little more restricted than ARPGs, but I think class design as a whole uh, really changes based on the rest of the game. And in the examples of games like Path of Exile and D2 and D3, I feel like they should be able to do multiple things, and it should really come down to the decisions that you make leading up to them.
Well said. Do any of the rest of you any thoughts in that regard? I got some thoughts on this.
I mean,
I
I
oh,
agree with that. You go ahead, Dbrunski.
I would just say maybe like a little bit of both, like just using a Diablo 2 reference. So I'm sure that when they were designing the Barbarian, it was meant in mind for uh, team support with the battle order or the war cries, and also being like a physical damage dealing character. But then people through theory crafting created the hit circer. Now everyone's probably familiar with that, except for you might not be Rhykker, but it's a character that is arguably the best single magic finding build in the game.
I
It
don't think
was
it's
se-
arguable. It is
It's
100%.
definitely
Like it is far and away the best
well,
farming build in the game.
I would say for Tyro's Might it is. There's like, I don't know if I even want to go down this road, but I think there is some characters like Poison Necro, Players 7, Pits, 500 MF, everything except for Tyro's. You could argue it depends on what you're farming for. If you're specifically
Well,
farming for
yeah,
TCA 70
it
or
depends.
Might
Runes or
exactly.
items too. Runes or
Yeah,
items.
Yep.
anyways, I don't
runes
want
or
to go
items.
down that
Okay,
road,
okay.
but I think that the Barbarian it's a good example of that, where it was intended for a couple purposes from the game developers, and it does perform those functions. But then people through theory crafting kind of thought of different unique uses for each individual character. So maybe a bit of both. That's the best way I could answer that.
That's fair. That's fair.
Watching for that flexibility, kind of, I suppose, and see how people start to utilize those characters, and maybe um, keeping those options open. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I think another thing too when you do game design is that you want to design something, but you want to design it in a way where yes, you have an idea in mind, and you have a specific way that you kind of want players to play, but you also don't want to create a box where players can't break your ideas to create their own. So you want to make sure you leave wiggle room essentially where people can think differently than the way that you do without completely breaking the game. So it's a weird balance where you have to essentially leave room for people to have thoughts that you can't think of without breaking it. It's a weird dynamic. That's about the best way I can describe it.
Yeah.
Like
All good
like
thoughts. All good thoughts.
making a bear source in vanillity too.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
exactly.
a
Which
really
is
good. Like, no one would imagine that the single most damage dealing character in the game, melee damage, is the sorceress. Well, it's not
Yeah.
melee; it's lightning. But anyways, it's the weirdest build that
Yeah.
it
It's
was
so
not
fun.
intended from the developers. I guarantee you that they did
Yeah.
not intend a sorceress to do 65,000 plus lightning damage with a single hit. But people, and I mean, I think that kind of like ties into a lot of that is from how well Diablo 2, in my opinion, does itemization.
Yep.
That plays a
agreed.
big part too. It's not just like there's different aspects to kind of theory crafting or coming up with these niche characters, and some of it is skill distribution, obviously. But I think that you could probably argue for Diablo 2 that probably, I don't know, what do you guys think? 75% of builds are kind of more gear based, and then, anyways, it's just I think that itemization is a big aspect of that as well, for being able to do that.
I think
That's true.
even like the way that they present gear in Diablo 2 as well. I'm a big fan of simple things done right, which is a large part of the reason why like the whole design concept behind PD2 is just trying to keep things simple but done well. And I think that's something that like Dungeons and Dragons is an example. I'm not going to say it's simple, but the core fundamentals of like, warrior, mage, it's like they're simple concepts, right? And then the rule sets get really complicated, but the general concepts are simple. And Diablo 2 is kind of the same thing where the items aren't overly bloated with stats. The general idea of what the items do for the most part is fairly simple with a few exceptions. And most players can pick up those exceptions fairly quickly and then kind of start tinkering around with the general idea of what they're trying to do. Maybe it's not the best thing, but they still have a general idea that can push them in the direction fairly easily. And I feel like
Yeah,
that
that's
ability for like my girlfriend, for example, just got into playing. She's never played D2 before, and it's the fact that she can just pick it up and play is like to me is a good sign of how good the game is. Right? She's a better gamer than I am. She can beat Dark Souls and I can't. So I'm not gonna talk shit, but but yeah. I think it shows how good the game is as a whole. The fact that people can pick it up 20 years later and it's still straightforward enough that they can just go from beginning to end.
I think that's one
Absolutely.
thing that. Oh, sorry.
No, go
I
ahead.
think that's one thing that Diablo 2 does really well is that somebody like Senpai just said, his girlfriend can pick it up, start playing, and make their way through the game. That's like the kind of the tip of the iceberg, and then underneath is all the different building and theory crafting. I think that's one thing that Diablo 2 does really well. Is it targets like an audience that can just jump in right in and play, but also at the same time not be very overly complicated for endgame theory crafting and making particular builds.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Blizzard had what they call the mom test. I believe that's what they referred to it. That they
Yep.
wanted always to ensure that their games could be made that their mom could play it and pick it up and understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, something that's like really cool about the itemization in Project Diablo 2 is that corruptions thing. And I get the question asked quite often. It's like, oh, what's the best build? What's the meta for this and that? I'm like, ultimately it depends on what you find and what you create. Like, it's like, is it a 3-skill Shaco or is it a 3-skill Steel Shade? Is it, there's so many different things that, um, haven't been thought of before, and the meta is just evolving, and there's updates and stuff like I was saying before, constantly happening with patches and new seasons, but it's just yeah, it's the itemization gets me really excited because it's not a set path every single time.
Mm.
It RNG kind of dictates what happens with that, and it's like, okay, I have to think, how do I want to play this now that I have this item? So
And I like that you
I
brought
like
up
that.
the corruption piece as well, because that really does add that extra element to it. And it really continues to further make it more unique, right? Like you were talking about. Because I mean, I get like 500 price checks a day. Everybody comes in and they just want to know, what's this item worth? What's the, what is it? Well, a lot of times it's something that's like crazy, where it's like 6 attributes on a mage fist. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, okay, a mage fist isn't worth a ton, but like, it's okay if you rolled FCR, people might like it more. But like, if you don't need the FCR, attribute seems like a great roll on that. And so, like, yeah, maybe that is worth. Like, there's so many variables and so many different things. For
Also,
all that.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm also
No,
very
you're good.
happy with the puzzle box interaction too, and the way it's played out with the community. The puzzle box to corruption thing. So for
Yep.
people that aren't aware, we have the corruption system in PD2, which is obviously the same as the Val Orb type system in Path of Exile, where you can corrupt an item and you can either destroy the item, get sockets on the item, or get a new modifier on the item. And then we also have a new item called the Larzux puzzle box, which can give the item sockets, but it can't be used on an item that already has sockets. So when you corrupt an item, you can get more sockets through corruptions than you can through a puzzle box. But instead, you could also go through the route where you corrupt in the effort to chase a mod and then try to puzzle box it after. So you can do either a combination of less sockets through puzzle box with a modifier through corruption, or you can chase pure sockets through corruption. So it's kind of a balance between the two, which makes you think like, do I want to get deadly strike and damage and 2 sockets, or do I want to just get 4 sockets because I want to put these other 2 things in the sockets that will make it more customizable. So you kind of that chase and the way that it pans out kind of leads you in different directions.
And you can always brick your griffins 1,000 times too. So it's really fun.
Just tell me when you go to brick them. I'll make sure I flip the switch to brick.
I swear, I swear you have a switch back there, or you've tagged my account or something. 7 in a row of just garbage. 3 bricks, 3 1 open sockets, and 1 trash mod.
Our economy
Terrible.
llama.
It's terrible. And we need to improve Griffin somehow. Their corruption rates.
Keeping the rare items rare.
Oh, so many.
On the topic of items and pricing items, leads into the game's economy. Now, I know that you got some rules on trade, right, Senpai?
Yeah, so basically we prevent all third-party trading of any kind. We're still, unfortunately, because our player base got so crazy large, we had to take down our trade site in order to completely redo it, basically, because we our database couldn't handle the amount of players going through it, so we had to completely redo it, and we're in the process of hopefully getting that up. Hopefully within the next week or two. We're gonna see what we can do. But we're really pushing to try to at least get a beta out for this weekend experiment. And basically, like I said, we're preventing all third-party trading of any kind. We're enforcing trading on our website, Discord, or Reddit, or through Twitch, just because we want to make sure that there's no real money associated or any kind of like third-party currency, like forum golds, for example. We ban anyone that's caught using those because we just don't want any kind of we don't want any currency that undermines a ladder reset, because a lot of these third-party currencies, they carry over into the next ladder, which it makes it pointless to have a reset, right? If people have currency that's carrying over.
Just buy the first jaw that drops.
Yeah, so we heavily ban all third-party trading. I do it nonstop all day long, every day, basically. So yeah, that's been an ongoing thing that we've had to deal with for sure. And I'm hoping once we get the trade site back up, less people feel tempted to do that, and they'll go through the legitimate ways of trading on the website and everything like that. We'll see how it goes.
I definitely felt the pain of the trade site going down. And I know a lot of people are like, but you trade on your Twitch. And I do make some trades on my Twitch. But the trade site, I was just like going crazy on that. Cause I mean, we would just be in there mapping, and then while we're mapping, I'm just on the side punching stuff in, just constantly refreshing it. I just had a timer that refreshed every 30 seconds. Just look over. Ooh, that's a good deal. Send the offer off, come back, and we're still mapping and going, and like, oh, it was fantastic. And then as soon as that went down, it was like what do I do? Like, oh, I missed it so much. So I'm really happy you're bringing that up next week or 2 weeks, whatever, because that's dearly missed. I know by me, and I'm sure even more by people that didn't even have a Twitch to trade with. Like,
I get a lot of DMs daily about the trade site. But yeah, we also got a lot of cool features we're working on too. Like, there's a lot of features that we want to do that are inspired by things like the Path of Exile trade site. I think is honestly one of the best made trade sites I've ever seen. I think they did an amazing job on that. So we're trying to do a lot of things that are kind of somewhat inspired by that. Things like being able to take your rare ring, right, which is going to have random stats on it, and being able to copy the stats from the in-game and directly drop it in the site without ever doing anything except 2 buttons, right? Just copy paste and paste your rare item in the site and click offer, and just post it instantly. So we're trying to streamline the whole thing. We're working a lot on things that will do that behind the scenes right now.
Awesome. Now, this might be related, but throughout the past 8 months, what have been the biggest challenges you've run into in making this mod or maintaining it?
I mean, I'm gonna say that's probably different for every member of the team. For me personally, a large part of it has just been honestly balancing my real life with the mod, because I don't get much time for that. The other part would probably be the player base. The growth of the player base was just insane. I had to basically quadruple my moderation team overnight to deal with it. And then all of the technical things that we had to do to bounce around and micromanage that. But yeah, for me overall, I guess I'd probably just say the growth of it and the speed that it grew. And then just trying to keep up with that, because like I said, we're a small team, and the team hasn't grown with the size. The size has just grown, right? So, so it's been a lot of that.
Now, to circle a little bit back to what we were talking about earlier, from your perspective, was there ever, Senpai, was there ever anything that you guys implemented or were thinking of implementing, but then you realized, no, this is straying too far from D2, and you had to either dial it back or remove it altogether?
I would say there's a few abilities. Yeah, like there was early on in PD2, we attempted to make an Amazon skill. It was a cold skill. It was going to be a cold bow skill, and it just didn't feel right. No matter what we did to it, it didn't feel like it was natural in the game. It just
could you shoot a frozen orb out?
Essentially, what happened was it was supposed to be like a shatter shot type skill. It was supposed to shoot to a position and then shatter.
Oh, I think you cut out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's possible he's going to jump back in.
Down. Rip.
Okay. Well, as we wait for him to come back, MrLlama, what are you, I guess, most anticipating for to come to PD2? If there's like one thing that you can like tell
Multiple
Senpai.
explosions.
Oh wait, is he
Yeah.
back?
Hey, Senpai.
Senpai? He might still be in lag world.
Yeah.
It's possible he hears us or we don't hear him. He's yeah. So MrLlama, what would you, if you can add one thing to PD2, what would it be?
Nation's right.
Oh my God.
He'll just be going for the next hour. Clips every minute. Oh no. Oh, that's fabulous. The one thing I would probably add is just that further endgame content. I think that's really the step, besides like the stuff he was talking about with like ladder races and, you know, like a cool 1 week season of griefing and, you know, speed runs, whatever stuff. Like I'm sure there's a ton of things that he can do for just racing purposes overall. But yeah, I would just love to see. Oh, hey, I'm BT now. I would just love to see like further endgame content there, where we really just hit this cool stuff, where it's just like, you know, wow, we got T4, T5, T6, we got dungeons. There's some like raid material in there almost. Like I think there's a lot of really cool stuff that could be done, and just added on right now. So
Awesome. BT, how about you?
Well, there's this idea that Senpai's been talking about with something called dungeons, and he says that it's gonna be like extremely difficult content that you cannot solo, and it will require a team. And that to me sounds amazing. There is in LOD this rare circumstance that can happen that, you know, you're teleporting to Bale or whatever in Worldstone, and you just come across like the worst couple packs of monsters. Yeah, that just will one shot you no matter how geared you are. And they will clear a team if your team's there. They don't care. They will plow through, and the RNG says no, you may not pass. So it's like it would be great to see some of that stuff implemented in dungeons, and it would be awesome, you know, just to get absolutely destroyed as a team. Like seeing that happen, witness that. So
yep.
stuff like that in the end game sounds very exciting to me. I would love to see more end game.
Dbrunski, how about you?
Well, seeing as Llama and BT took the good answers,
Sorry.
I'm just kidding. I'll go with adding some additional rune words. I think that if you thought up of like 10 really expensive rune words with totally different new chance to proc or whatever associated attributes, that I think that that's like a very simple way to add a lot more different builds or theory crafting just from additional rune words.
Fantastic.
Senpai, what
Senpai.
about you?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the question? My internet died.
Well, do you know when you cut out? Because you
No,
were in
I
the
don't.
middle of a thought.
Yeah,
Ooh.
no, I don't.
Do you want to
don't know.
quickly
You
kind of
said
rehash what?
cold.
Go ahead.
It's a shatter shot, and it goes and it hits a spot, and then that was all.
Oh, okay. Back to the cold skill, the cold bow skill. Yeah, basically, yeah, it was like a shatter shot skill we were trying to make, and essentially it was supposed to explode at a point and then create multiple exploding projectiles that could overlap. And it was going to be basically a single target type skill, right? Like multiple shatters of ice in a small conal area type thing. But yeah, it didn't look like it fit in the game, and it didn't. No matter what we did, we couldn't get it to feel like it. We even tried giving like a lob effect to it, which just looked weird in the D2 2D engine, and all kinds of weird things, right? And everything we did, even if the skill felt pretty fun to play, it always looked like this weird skill that was added from a mod. And so in the end, because we couldn't get it to look right, we just scrapped it because it just didn't feel natural. And that's something that we're really focused on a lot with PD2. So
fantastic. But yeah, while you were reconnecting, we were asking everyone if there's one thing that they'd like to see added to PD2, what would it be? So now the question for you: if you could magic wand in, let's put it this way, we'll change yours a bit. If you can magic wand something into PD2, regardless of how expense or how difficult it would be, if you can just magic it in instantly, what would you do?
Infinite stash tabs, so I stopped getting 400 messages a day about infinite stash tabs.
Hey, are you gonna add that?
I would save an hour of my life a day if I didn't have to respond to why infinite stash tabs aren't a thing. So I would say that. No, but for me personally, probably a ton of Ubers. I really like extremely challenging boss fights with interesting mechanics. So I'd say probably some type of crazy PvP support, like hardcore players don't die in PvP and can respawn in PvP, so that hardcore players can still play, and probably probably Ubers. I'd say those are probably my two biggest ones: large PvP support and Ubers.
I have one
Awesome.
quick question for you, Senpai. I'm just really curious. I just want to jump on that tangent. What is involved from like the technical aspect of adding additional stash tabs to a character? Because if you just look at original classic D2 was the tiny stash. They made it a little bit bigger in expansion. Like, is it that challenging or that much more like memory or whatever it is to say, like, I don't know, I'm not a game developer, but to give like 5 10 by 10 or 5 10 by 15 stash pages to each individual character? Would that just be a nightmare with people having mules and stuff like that, or is it actually something that's
Well, I'm not a
theoretically
coder, so
feasible?
I'm not going to say I know the exact specifics, but a large part of the issue, as far as I know, is that Pluggy, for example, it saves the stashes locally.
Yep.
And D2 only has the ability to save X memory on the actual server with your character file. It's something, even mid-ladder, we actually had to increase the maximum save size of D2 characters. It's something that we actually had to tackle in the middle of ladder. So it's an issue we've already had to deal with ourselves. And then the other issue is that once you have something like multiple tabs, the exploits that people can find with the ability to shift between tabs, because the game is spaghetti coded out. So who knows what kind of holes you're going to open up once you can have two tabs. Can you do weird things to mimic mirror the tabs, like all kinds of small loopholes, and they'll mess with it until they find a way to break with it. So you got to be careful when you add things like that where there's more room to break it than other things, right? I'd say security is a large part of why it won't be added in PD2 anytime soon, just as much as the actual difficulty of adding it, I guess.
Great question, Dbrunski. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about an achievement that a couple of you got here. We had MrLlama and BT. The two of you were the first 99 in your respective classes. What possessed you to decide to go all in on this?
This team ultimately. When I sent out the message to everybody, I was like, hey, let's form a group on ladder. We'll do, like, the reset was November, or the ladder start was November 6th. I was like, can we make a group for the weekend and like we'll go through November 8th? That's all I want. That's all the commitment I want. And you know, I don't even ultimately know how it all happened, but we got to November 8th, and then November 9th happened, and we're still together. And then it continued. It's like, hey, are we gonna be
What are you talking about?
are we gonna be on the leaderboard? Are we gonna push for it? And
You said to Kano, you can't get to 99.
that's what I did say that. I did say that.
And you went, oh, okay. You underestimate me, or whatever he said. And then that was it. That was
That's
what happened.
That's what it was.
You started it. Because you hate on Kano.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. But yeah, I ended up doing it alongside the entire 8-man team. We just finished, was it yesterday? All of us hit 99, I think. So that's really cool. That we actually stuck together that long to be able to finish that out.
Big congrats there. Would you do it again?
Overall, like with it's very hard to say. Like season 1, you had to be on your feet all the time with every single like balance change and meta shift. It was happening on the daily. Like every day we were talking about how do we want to run maps? Do we want to run Bale? Do we want to run maps? Are they better here? Are they better there? Like what do we want to roll on the maps? Like all these different things are going on, and like Senpai throws a wrench in all of our ideas with a balance patch coming out with maps. Like, oh, they're better. Okay, if that's the case, how much better? So, with all that being said, the first 1 to 99 on ladder 1, would I do that experience itself again? Probably not. But would I see myself doing 1 to 99 again? If things are more streamlined and figured out and solid, I could see myself doing that again as a team. I know there's a couple people next season that might want to do it. I might be okay with being their support group, like just being there as a filler if they need 8 players in the game, or going and magic finding to help out them so that they can go and try to reach ultimate rank 1 like for that season or something. Like I would love to be a part of a team in that scenario. But I'll take a couple ladders off from 99, you know? So
Awesome. How about you, MrLlama?
Yeah, man, I think BT covered it pretty well in that, like, we weren't really expecting it, and then all of a sudden, it just kind of became this thing that we were doing, and it was fun, and it was, um, just like it was just really exciting. And then we had all of the shift in the meta as it was going on, right? Where it was like bail runs are good now, T3s are good now. We corrupt them? No, we don't. And then later we do corrupt them, and there was just so much stuff happening throughout the season. It was super cool and a really exciting push to 99. Will I do it again? I mean, I didn't think I was going to push another character to 99 again after I got my single player sorceress to 99. I hit 99 once and I was like, I'm done. That's the last 99 I'm ever doing.
that's exactly what
And
I
then like
said. Yeah.
and then a month later they wrote me into somehow making a second 99. And then I was cool going casual with it. And then all of a sudden we had hyperactive and these guys ZY and all these guys pushing us from this other group doing crazy days. So then we're having to do crazy days. And it just became this insane, like long grinding push. But it was so much fun to do it with the group. I wouldn't do it alone for sure. But with a good group of people, and with support classes meaning stuff and whatnot, it was just so fun. I just really enjoyed everybody there. And we just had a good flow going, good vibes, and it was just a good time.
Awesome. Awesome. Dbrunski, what was your highlight of, let's say, the last like month or ever since the launch of PD2, let's say? It could be specifically about PD2. It doesn't have to be. What's been your highlight?
Doing Ubers for the first time. It's just completely different than LOD. It's not throwing on life tap and smiting away. It's, even though you can still do that, it's a lot more challenging. And yeah, I'd say that would be my highlight. I got smoked a couple
Awesome.
times, but I got it kind of figured out now. But yeah, that would be my highlight for sure.
Fantastic. How
I
about
haven't
you,
had a chance to
Senpai?
do declone yet.
Oh, okay.
That's apparently even worse. Just ask MrLlama about
Ooh.
it.
Buggy. It's terrible. Hate that fight. Single player, fantastic. Multiplayer I don't want to talk about it.
But yeah, Senpai, how about you? What's been your highlight of? Obviously, this was obviously, I presume it was a big crunch leading up to release. Probably lots of stress. Then probably lots of stress while it's releasing and for after release. But what has been your big highlight of the past 2 weeks?
My highlight was week 2 when I slept for 12 hours straight. No. My I've just enjoyed all of it, honestly. I think a large part of it has just been seeing people play different things, seeing how excited people have been as a whole, and just feeling like Diablo 2 has kind of had sort of a revival, I guess, in 2020. It's not something I really expected, you know. When we had, I think it was like 12,500 players online at once. I did the math, and that put us at like top 30 on Steam or something like that. And I was just
Wow.
thinking, wow, could you imagine Diablo 2 like top 30 on Steam in 2020? Like, that's crazy to me, you know? So I guess for me, it was just seeing the Diablo 2 community come back after so long, and seeing a lot of people that have never played before play it, even though it's an old game. And just the community for me, and just like I said, Diablo's revival, I guess, and the awakening of D2.
Well said. Well said. And so this is something that I caught myself. I was going to ask earlier, but Diablo 2, 20-year-old game, and yet 12,500 concurrent players in a mod, right? What do you folks think? What has kept this community and this game going after so many years? MrLlama?
I mean, to boil it all down, it's just the best game ever, I think is the easiest way to put it. If you want me to expand on that,
Please
which
do.
I will for you.
Yeah.
Really, what makes Diablo 2 still hold up to this day is how well they really built on the core pillars of an ARPG. And I talked a little bit about this when I was talking about like what I wanted to see in Diablo 4,
Mm.
and I did some breakdown of like ARPGs and stuff. From combat in like PvP and PvE, the combat there, the itemization is absolutely huge. And still to this day, I get excited about items in Diablo 2. Like, it's fascinating how well items are built in this game. They've created a really good thematic world that you just want to stay in. It's got, you know, a little bit of that eerie feel, the just like, I don't know, the Diablo world, the colors, the builds of everything is just really clean. Even when it's old looking, it still looks great, right? I still love sprite art personally, and I still think it holds up really well. Same with like StarCraft and all of those older games there that use that art style. And then it has that community and the ability for things like trade to exist, and the ability for the community to really build the game into what they want it to be a little bit. And so we've seen you know, things like crazy builds, things like, you know, you can do crazy things like chicken races and whatever, right? Like, you can make this game so much more than what they designed the game to be. And so there's so many options there. And then lastly, with that, going along with that, is the modding capabilities.
Mm.
There's a lot that you can do to mod this game. And we've seen so many people like Senpai create a mod that changes the game in some way, whether it's as crazy as Media in Excel or as, you know, close to PD or to vanilla as PD2, right? You can do anything and everything. And we've seen people make funny, silly mods that are just like small and just, you know, to like screw around with you, or like massive drop rate mods or mass mob, you know, ones where it's just like the whole screen is filled with mobs all the time. Like, there's just so many ways to play this game and to do stuff. And yeah. And so I just think that Blizzard nailed it, and they built such a good game and such a good base that, you know, you see these other games out there that are out there right now, and they're fun, and you go play them for a bit, but they don't scratch every itch. And Diablo 2 just scratched all the itches. And so I always come back.
That is a tough answer to follow. I gotta say, that is a wonderful, wonderful answer. Who wants to follow that? Which of you guys wants to follow that?
I'll attempt it here. In addition to everything Llama said about the core game mechanics, I think that there's a huge nostalgia factor. Like, I can't tell you how many times when I'm streaming, somebody will randomly pop in, recommended feed and be like, "Oh my god, I played this game when I was grade 6 or whatever. I stayed up super late, went to school with 2 hours sleep," that kind of thing. Like, it's a huge nostalgia factor. Um, Modding community is helping keep me alive, and I also think that all of the Diablo 2 Twitch streamers. I mean, I think everybody from like BT, Senpai, MrLlama, like everyone is just super passionate about the game, and outside of that, they're just genuinely good people. And I think that in addition to everything that Llama said about the game, is what is keeping it alive in 2020.
Well said. Well said. BT, anything to add to that?
If I can just copy paste both MrLlama and Dbrunski, that's what I would say. Ultimately,
Change a word here or there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Keep away from plagiarism. But yeah, it's I'd 100% agree. Like, the community in the current day is still very strong. An awesome community of people. You got questions, the D2 community is, happy to answer ultimately. And everybody's accessible. You can send them messages, and as I'm sure Senpai knows, he gets so many messages, I'm sure. Um, everybody's accessible, and the game is still around. Like, and yeah, it's honestly surprising to me though, because I grew up with this game as a kid, and it's surprising to me that I'm playing it right now. So again, that nostalgic factor is pretty big for me, and I can't imagine for other people as well. It's great. So
Yeah, I think
Awesome.
it's really crazy too. Like thinking back, like I remember being a little kid, and joking with my friends, eating our hot lunch, Little Caesars personal pizzas, and then, fast forward almost 20 years later, actually talking to David Brevik and, making a mod and, doing this stuff, and it's getting as crazy as it has. It's crazy to see it all come full circle.
So you got to talk to David Brevik about PD2?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure you've seen before. He streams regularly on the Jungle Queen with JQ and all
Yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff. So I frequent them, talk to them all the time. They're great people and
One
very humble
one
and
of the
easy to talk
coolest
to.
things ever, right?
Right.
yeah,
Like, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but the fact that you could just like pop over and David Brevik and his wife are just chilling there streaming, and you can just like have a chat with them,
yeah,
is like the coolest thing the internet's brought ever.
Yeah, and they're the
right.
most like humble, regular people that are so easy to talk to too. Like just very like homey. Like they just very awesome people. It's really cool to see the people behind something that you've been so passionate about your whole life, and then realize that they're just regular people that are awesome and genuine. And it's something that's really cool to see. As opposed to they turn out to be
Absolutely.
some monster or something. The corporate monster or something, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so this has definitely been like an amazing year for Diablo 2. Now, without diving too deeply into the topic, because we can have a whole other podcast talking about this, what if Blizzard looks at this, sees the numbers that PD2 is pulling, and they're like, if they aren't already working on a remaster, if they don't already have one well into development, what if this makes them decide, oh damn, yes, we should definitely do a D2 remaster? Would you guys be in favor
Do
of
it.
that? Yeah.
As long as they give mod support, otherwise PD2 is not around very long.
And that's a very fair opinion, right? Because you're looking at it from a completely different perspective as a creator of this mod. In fairness, though, I would imagine if they would remaster the game, they're not going to add the endgame systems that you're adding. They're not going to add the new skills that you're adding.
Exactly.
Presumably, in general, remasters are more just like the pure, base experience, enhanced, revitalized. But yeah,
Exactly.
you do broach a great point. Like, would it still have that modding support Yeah, I would hope
Yeah,
so. I would hope so.
and because of that, like as much as I love D2 LOD, but once you start playing like heavily modded versions of it, and you see all these like small things that it's missing, even though I love the base game so much and I played it for 20 years, when I go back now, all of the cracks are a lot more obvious than they were when I played previously. You know, I'm not. So now when I
Mm.
go back, it feels like going from a car to a pedal bike or something like that. You know, I'm like, why am I pedaling? Like, can't I just push the pedal down? Like, so it's weird going back now. So as much as I love the game, I really, really do hope if they do ever remaster it, they do provide mod support, or at least allow people to mod the game, whether they're not supporting it directly.
So I would say people forget StarCraft Remastered, right? They look
Right.
at the most recent of Reforged, which didn't do so well. So I'd say they're batting 500. StarCraft Remaster was gorgeous. It was
Yeah.
like a perfect remaster. They nailed it. And it was like everything that I could have wanted StarCraft Remaster, they had it. They fixed the ladder, they improved the graphics on it. They, brought in options, but they didn't kill what they had, all of that stuff. It was so well done. Then Warcraft 3 Reforged came around. Wasn't very well done and that kind of set everybody off on the wrong foot. But they're still batting 500 in my opinion. So I think we could see it go both ways, right? I think you could have a remaster where if they do come in and do stuff like disable mod support, yeah, we're really going to run into issues
Mm.
because there's so many people that love so many mods that would just like ruin everyone's day
Yeah.
and they'll get the community up in arms. At the same time, if they can find a way to keep that and bring in, their own remaster version of it and do whatever there, I think that there's still a chance they could do really well with it. If they can bring that StarCraft style into Diablo 2 remaster, I still think that there's plenty of possibility for a solid remaster. But we don't know which way they're going with it, right? They could come and destroy it. So my big thing would be, as long as you don't touch what we have, do whatever you want, right? Like, as long as I can always come back to just having my version on my
Mm.
computer that I can play, having my mods that I can go play. If you put out a remaster and it's garbage, cool, whatever. I just won't touch it and I'll just keep playing my own stuff. Like, that for me would be sold. I'm good on it. Let's go from there. But we just don't know which way it's going to go. And so that would be my biggest complaint and biggest worry, is if they do stuff like damage what PD2 is,
Mm.
through their own stuff. But, will they even remaster E2? I don't know. I've been asking for it for 3 years now, and I keep trying to predict it, and I'm never right. So who knows?
How about you, BT?
I feel like Llama nailed it there. As
Mm.
it's just like, you know, and also Senpai with the mod support. I think ultimately, after playing Diablo 2 LOD after a long time, as much as I love it, it's just, these mods and what the community has created, the current flow of the current community, all of that is what makes up the D2 community. And I feel like if it was just a remaster and then all of a sudden we lose, PD2 or Pluggy or stuff like
Mm.
this that I love on a daily basis and play on a daily basis, if we lose those, I would be, very upset. Um, but if they can, like StarCraft remastered, where all that mod support is still there and they did a great job with StarCraft remasters. Like if it can be like that in Diablo 2, I'm all for it. Like bring me some HD stuff, bring me some more quality of life stuff. Like let's do it. Like
Yeah.
so that's what I have to say.
Makes sense. How about you, Dbrunski?
I would absolutely play a Diablo 2 remaster. Like you mentioned, you could literally have an entire podcast on it. But the only thing that, and like just adding on to Llama's and BT's points, because they're all really good, I'm just very curious what the direction would be that they take with it. So, like, for
Mm.
instance, you streamed and made a video on a fan made remaster Rhykker that is a different approach to remastering D2 than Senpai with his AI HD shaders, right? So
Mm.
I'm totally fine with playing modern games. Like I like, Wolcen, PoE, they're great games. But if I wanted to see DT Remaster, I would want to see something more along the lines of what Senpai did with the HD shaders versus like the fan made mod that you covered. That's just me personally. And second point is that I think it's very difficult to please the Diablo 2 community because some people,
Mm.
in terms of like
Yes.
quality of life changes, right? Like removing the stamina bar or having auto gold pickup. Like, is that something you would want to put in a remaster, or do you want to keep it like you mentioned about just being a completely clean remodeling of Diablo? Like, how do you thread the needle to please everybody, which I don't think is possible. So that's just in addition to what Llama and BT said. Like, I would absolutely play it, but I'm just wary of which direction they would take with it.
I think options would be the best thing that they can give us. Like, you have the option to play it like this or like this, like just because that's so true. There's so much of the community that's already divided among things, right? You got half the community that's like hardcore is the only way to play, softcore shouldn't even exist. You got the people who are like classic Diablo 2 is the true experience, LOD ruined everything. Like you already have the community
Yeah.
angry about the changes that exist currently in the game. And so, the more that they bring in with all of that stuff, the more they could further divide. And that's why I say, like, if, like with StarCraft, you could just push a button and you could go back to the legacy view of it, right? You didn't have to play
Yeah.
on the remastered view. You could just go back and play it like it was before. And so, having just options to swap between, I think right there would be fantastic.
But if you took that approach though, and again, I'm not a game developer, but it would have to be the route that Senpai took with his HD AI shaders, right? Like I don't think you could play the other remaster and then have it flip back to the original mode, which that is a really good
True.
point that you bring up. It would bottleneck them into
Yeah.
going a specific direction, which
Yeah.
is interesting.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean,
That's one of those.
I know that like in StarCraft, for example, they went out and talked to Flash, right? And they're like, "Hey, how does this look? Like, is this worth, pursuing and stuff like that?" And it's like, "Is this look feeling good?" And, because, Flash, for people that don't understand or people that don't know, he's like absolutely insane at StarCraft Brood War, best player by far. And yeah, so they went and asked the community and the players that play it every day, um, what they thought. And if Blizzard went and did that for like the people that are constantly doing stuff in Diablo 2 every day, I think that's probably how we would get the best result. But again, that's my opinion. So
Have they reached out to you, BT?
I can't say anything, man.
Dang. Okay, BT is the playtester there.
Oh, well said. Well said. Definitely important things to consider. And again, we can probably have a whole podcast determining where's the line, like what can be changed regarding stamina, gold pickup, sharing loot, or we all see the same loot. There's so many things. I mean, David Brevik, for instance, like he wishes he could go in and remove the stamina bar. If I remember, he feels strongly about that
Oh
one.
yeah.
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 A lot of people
said
hate
he
the
hated
stamina
it.
bar. I don't hate it as much as most people.
Yeah, neither do
I
I.
do
but a
wish
lot of
I'd
people
shared
don't
loot,
like it,
though.
including Brevik.
Yeah, but I feel like there's like reasons behind it to a degree, right? Like it makes it so that you can't infinitely run. Eventually, you will slow down, and the monsters will catch up, or you can, things like that. Right? It's very subtle, and 99% of the time useless. But that 1% adds a little bit here and there.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll be wrapping up here. I guess on the note to close, question for Senpai and MrLlama. for people attempting to do community projects, like you're each doing, it's something very different, but nonetheless, it is a big community project. What advice would you have? What do's and don'ts for people that are deciding, like, yep, I want to take on a big undertaking like this for the Diablo community? Or I guess it could be for any community.
I guess for me personally, I'd say that you just have to kind of choose something that you're passionate about and something that makes you want to work on it. Because if you aren't passionate about it and it's not something that like you really feel the drive to continue to work on, the people around you are going to feel that as well, and you're all going to eventually burn out because the stuff takes time, and if you don't feel like it's worth it, then you're going to burn out. That's just the reality of it. So you need to find something that you really believe in and you're passionate about and you want to make happen, and you need to find people that feel the same way and want to really push with you. Because yeah, like I said, things take time and it takes a lot of work, and you have to believe in yourself and believe in what you're doing. And I guess that's the biggest one for me personally.
Well said.
That sounds like all the advice I give when somebody asks, "Should I stream on Twitch?" I'm like, "Well, if you're passionate about it and you really enjoy
Well,
it."
well, my advice on
Um,
streaming on Twitch is more harsh than that, but but this doesn't have to pay your rent, so
Mm.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, from my side, I would definitely say like if you want to set it up, really create a good goal of what you'd like, and then maybe some like sub goals and like don't have this like it has to be exactly this, and if it's anything less, it's a failure or anything like that, right? Like when I was looking at setting up this event, you know, it has changed so much from when I first was like brainstorming it and constructing it and brought it to to the arena guys. It was like, hey, like how can we do this? And what limitations do we have on your site for this and all of that stuff? So everything really like has changed completely along the way, but some things are less than I wanted. Other things are more. I didn't think we'd get awesome prizes like we have.
Mm.
But when I was trying to set up like the Olympic style piece of it, I was trying to do like bronze, silver, gold for every event and all these things. And eventually it was like, that's just too much, right? It's just like, let's just focus on getting the people together and having this fun event. And we'll do just like some point totals and go from there. So I really think a lot of it is just like set your goals, set a lot of different goals with it, and just start talking and like Senpai said, be passionate about it, be excited, and you'll eventually get somewhere and get something that is cool and it's fun. And if you're trying to set up a fun PvP league or something, maybe you want to have a bunch of people, but if you get like 8 teams join and fight, be happy that there's 8 teams there that are having a good time, sort of thing, and go with that. So that's my advice.
Great advice. Great advice. All right. Well, people will be able to find links to the D2 Arena Games sign up and information pages in the description, as well as the Project Diablo 2, as well as the socials or the Twitch links to follow all of our wonderful, wonderful guests here, who we're going to thank immensely for coming on. You've all been fantastic. BTNeandertha1, Dbrunski, MrLlama, SenpaiSomething. Thank you so much for coming, and best of luck in the events this weekend. My team is totally going to crush your teams, guys. It's definitely going to happen. All right, it's going to happen.
I expect Rhykkers Raiders to be an 8th.
Is there a place after 8th?
No.
Okay. All right. So I guess we're going to call it there. And ever since I saw Senpai join, I wanted to say this to close. See you later, Space Cowboys. Until next time.
Later, Space Cowboy. Thanks for putting up with my ISP issues. Much love.